This video is going to be my first preview of the Detroit Lions hosting the Indianapolis Colts in Week 12. I think the matchup of Amik Robertson versus Josh Downs is one of the most important ones, specifically for Detroit's defense. I think this is a swing battle for whether or not the Colts can stay on the field in certain third and medium, third and short situations. Anthony Richardson showed a lot of improvement last week against the Jets. He was 20 of 30 passing for 272. Also ran for 2 touchdowns and threw for a third. Downs is a nightmare matchup for almost any defense. Whether a defense majors in man or zone, Downs can find open space. He can win against man-to-man coverage, and I intend to show you the film that proves that in this video. He's at a 70% catch percentage for 2024, 50 catches on 71 targets. Also has 4 touchdowns. He's just above 11.3 yards per catch in 2024. That number and his catch percentage number is remarkably consistent with 2023. It's just who he is. He's a playmaker. Regardless of size or speed considerations, he's a playmaker. Look, if you're not aware, he was an incredibly efficient playmaker in college. We shouldn't be surprised that that's carried over to the NFL. At North Carolina, his final year there, 2022, he had 94 catches on 116 targets. That's an 81% catch percentage. In 2021, the year before, he had 101 catches on a similar catch percentage. He's just very efficient, very smart. Anthony Richardson, Joe Flacco, whoever plays quarterback for the Colts, they get him the ball in third down situations. I think it's going to be Amik Robertson's job to line up and follow him in those moments. The corner situation is going to be possibly a challenge for the Lions on Sunday, with Terrion Arnold, I think, being questionable. Mosley possibly looking at returning. It's a good thing that Robertson's performance has been so solid. He's been a huge boost for Aaron Glenn's defense in a lot of ways. Number one, it's not just his actual coverage ability, whether it's man or zone. He's in good leverage, good relationship with receivers all the time. He gives quarterbacks smaller windows to throw the football. He's very tough. There's an edge that he plays with. I think he is what a lot of us hoped or thought that C.J. Gardner-Johnson might be for the Lions defense. He's brought that. His consistency in being available, however, might be the biggest asset. And here's what I mean by that. Since he's been the nickel DB or slot corner exclusively, that's allowed Brian Branch to move to the back end. That's huge. Branch is playing at an all-pro level. I think that's obvious. He would still be playing at an all-pro level if he was the nickel defender. But the point is, you can get another capable guy on the field in the case of Robertson. If he weren't there, let's just say, and Branch has to play nickel defender, who plays the other safety position next to Kirby Joseph at the third level of the defense with Ifeatu Melifonwu out for so long? That DB group in Detroit is playing at an extremely high level. I look at Robertson as kind of like the leadoff hitter for that group, for that secondary. CD3 being the number 2 batter, Branch obviously in the third spot, and Kirby Joseph hitting some home runs in the cleanup position. Let's get to some of the film, and we'll focus on Robertson. I'll give you a comparison or an analogy for Robertson that I like, and some of the film will flow through here. He'll be spot shadowed before each play. The one thing I noticed about Robertson is he matches up well no matter what type of receiver he's tasked with guarding. So the smaller, quicker guys, Greg Dortch, JSN, among others, he kind of at times can overpower them with leverage. And he's very physical and handsy at the appropriate time. I think he plays within the actual rule set of the NFL in 2024. The larger, bigger slot receivers that he's been tasked with defending, he also matches up well with them. He kind of outquicks them. He almost reminds me of like a really good 6'3", 6'4" defender in the NFL who can guard the smaller point guards, but can also match up against a 6'6" guy because he can get up under him. He can outquick bigger guys and out-physical smaller, faster, more agile receivers like you see in some of this film. I think he's having a fantastic season. Is it an all-pro caliber season? Well, no. I mean, there's not the requisite interceptions and fumbles available to designate his performance as such. Nonetheless, I think he's been a huge asset for this defense. And to deal with Josh Downs, you have to be quick, smart, and have great agility and the ability to react whether you're playing man or zone. And Amik Robertson has all of that. Let's get to some of the film of downs, and I'll spot shadow him before the play. These are pretty much all going to be third downs. Number one, and I noticed this last year, that look, the Colts came to Baltimore and beat the Ravens in 2023 early in the season. He's excellent on screens. This is a 3rd and 10, I believe, early in the game against the Bears. And if you don't match up from a horizontal standpoint, meaning if you don't have enough guys out in space, they will throw screens on you, and Anthony Richardson's got a very strong arm. He can just flick it out there really quick. Like I said, this is a 3rd and 10, able to pick up 14 yards like it's nothing. Very good against zone. His agility here, I think, is on full display. He'll motion in, come back out, and then put his foot in the ground and reverse field or reverse course and end up catching the ball right past the goal line for a touchdown against the Steelers. I recall when he came out of North Carolina thinking that he was a guy that the Ravens should possibly look at taking later on in the draft. And the Colts did the right thing by grabbing him perhaps a little bit earlier than maybe some would have projected. He's a playmaker. The efficiency level was very high. He's got NFL bloodlines. He's related to Dre Bly, in case you don't know. He wins against man. He wins against high-level corners against man. This is one of my favorite reps of his for the year for a lot of reasons. No, it's not just because it's against the Steelers, but number one, it involves Joe Flacco. Number two, it's downs against Joey Porter Jr., who's a very high-level corner at this point in his second year. And number one, Flacco trusts Downs enough to get the ball out there. This is a 3rd and 6. He's in the slot, and I think this gives you an indication of the level that you're going to have to play at in order to keep him from converting. If the Lions are able to stop or slow down the run game, which the threat is different this week. The threat of the run game is drastically different with, my apologies, I thought I had the end zone angle of that previous play. The threat of the run game is different because Anthony Richardson, they utilize him in the option phase so much. So Aaron Glenn will be challenged a little bit about what he wants to do. Does he want to give clear declarative reads, give or keep, to Anthony Richardson, or does he want to half-man it, a gray area, if you will, force Anthony Richardson to decide what he wants to do and not be so clear or quick with the read? Typically, historically, Aaron Glenn's guys run down the line of scrimmage, take away the dive, and force the quarterback to keep the football. I'm not sure if you want to do that with Anthony Richardson, so there will be some adjustments there. If they're able to stop or slow down the run game, then these third downs become extremely important. Alec Pierce is a big play guy, leading the NFL in yards per catch. I think 22 yards per catch. I could be wrong. Michael Pittman Jr., his skills and accomplishments are well documented. Downs is the guy, however, on third down, whether it's man or zone, who is just great at finding space. A little zone here by the Steelers. I would almost say this ends up looking like a cloud cover 3, except it's the nickel DB who jammed and then settled in the flats. Downs is spectacular. Finding space against zone. I suspect that Aaron Glenn's answer on 3rd and 6, 3rd and 5 is going to be, we're going to play man, and we're going to bring pressure. We're going to make Anthony Richardson throw the football. His completion percentage is low this year. It's 58%. Last year was, 48% this year, 48.5, something like that. In 2023, his rookie year, in a limited or small sample size, obviously, Anthony Richardson's completion percentage was still low, 59.5. It's even lower this season. They love to do a lot of this stuff where Downs lines up as the outside receiver, and then they motion the running back out. In order to gain a real clear picture on what the coverage is. 3rd and 7 versus the Steelers. Look how unique this rep is. It's like a shake route, but it's like a slow shake route. You call it maybe a speed out or a flat route, shoot route. I hesitate to call it any of those things because it's so slow. It's intentionally so. Downs reminds me of, from an offensive standpoint, a point guard in basketball who's got every move. You're almost frozen because you don't know what he's going to do. You don't know if he's going to shake and then go to the inside, shoot out into the flats, or the worst in some cases is fake going outside to the flats and then come back to the inside, or vice versa. What I call China in, China out, most people just call a whip route. Again, it's a 3rd and 7. He's able to get free from one of the starting outside corners of the Steelers. He's got wins against pretty much every team they face. I caution against, as a Lions fan, anyone against not understanding how big of a weapon he is. Yes, Jonathan Taylor, Michael Pittman Jr., Anthony Richardson's a high round draft pick. Josh Downs is one of the keys to the whole thing because they can take bad sequences of plays, 3rd and 6, and he can give them a new set of downs. These are the types of routes where I believe that Amik Robertson is best suited to defend him, probably from a closer alignment than something like this. He will not sit back and just accept whatever move Josh Downs wants to run. I think he will get up there and be physical. Maybe you can't overpower a really good, small, agile defender or slot receiver like Josh Downs, but I think Amik Robertson is capable of disrupting him. 3rd and 3 up here against the Texans is a beautiful interception by Jalen Petre, who's having a great year for them, if you ask me, with few exceptions. It's a really poor throw by Anthony Richardson. So when you do play zone, and it is 3rd down, it's 3rd and 3 here, like I said, it's a 10-10 tie in the second quarter. Richardson tries to sneak this throw in here because he's reading the corner, jumping Pittman, not recognizing that Petre is already there, able to break on the ball. They're very fortunate this didn't get taken back to the house. I think that if and when they do play zone, Amik Robertson, can't be lined up this deep. I think he's got to be up at or near the line of scrimmage to make it look like man and then drop out, which makes it a little bit more difficult to break on the ball later on because you're changing direction so much. The toughness, the agility, the willingness to be physical, and then the actual ability to be physical within the rule set, I think is going to serve the Lions well in this game from an Amik Robertson standpoint. I'm not saying that I wouldn't want Brian Branch on him in certain situations if they motion across and the Lions don't want to give up their coverage or they're playing zone, perhaps they won't follow. So what I mean by that follow is perhaps if Downs motions across, they won't have Robertson go with him. They won't have him flow across to give away their coverage. Branch, that's another challenge if you ask me. Branch and Amik Robertson may have to be somewhat interchangeable this week from a right-left standpoint. I wonder about Branch being more so located to the boundary with Robertson to the field, such that on motion, they don't have to switch them. The only difference is then Robertson could end up playing a too high safety role, and I'm not sure that's necessarily the best usage or the one that that Aaron Glenn and the defense want to use. I love this throw from Anthony Richardson against the Texans. It's 23-13 in the fourth quarter. I believe about 10 minutes left, and he wins against Petre, who, like I said earlier, is having a really solid season for that team. These are the types of reps that Amik Robertson's going to want to avoid. If you do end up behind or underneath of Downs, it's not like he's so short and can't go get the football that they won't throw it over the top. Anthony Richardson trusts him. Joe Flacco does as well if he ends up being in the game. Of course, Lions fans are very familiar with a lot of the mug/sticks blitz zero looks that the Vikings show. They kind of drop out of here to a little bit of a Tampa 2 type look. It's a 3rd and 5. Vikings are up 14-7. We're into the third quarter. Flacco's in, clearly. So it's this hybrid Tampa 2 where you have a corner in the flats and then a half-field safety. But down here, they've accomplished it in another way. I believe that's Murphy dropping back to be a half-field safety, and then Harrison Smith dropping into the boundary side flats. He generally goes to the boundary when the ball is on the hash. Downs is great at finding space in zone. I think the tendency to go to him on 3rd down is something that perhaps Aaron Glenn, Robertson, Branch, and Kirby Joseph can use against Anthony Richardson. And I'll show you a rep of what I mean here in a moment against the Vikings. Pretty much they know where the ball's going to go. That's what makes this so unfortunate if Terrion Arnold is unable to play, because you could leave your outside corners in man against Pittman and Pierce and then move on to taking away down. So this is the type of play that I'm talking about. I believe this is an example of a trail man-ish type play by Murphy. It's a 3rd and 8 against the Vikings in the fourth quarter. Flacco has always been a guy who is willing to throw the football, even if it's a 50-50 type situation or like this. This is severely underthrown, but this is intentional. Murphy is intentionally playing underneath of this, and instead of Flacco throwing it a deeper to the top side shoulder, further down the field like this, he throws it underneath. Murphy undercuts it. Brilliant timing on a 3rd and 8. The Vikings are able to hold on to, retain their 14-7 lead on the way to a victory over the Colts. I think this is a dangerous football team. I haven't covered their defense at all. Just so you know, when they came to Baltimore last year and defeated the Ravens in Week 3, their defense very fast, physical, well coached under Gus Bradley. And they have guys that are going to play downhill at the second level. They're inside linebackers, nickel defenders. I think there'll be a challenge from a global standpoint. Overall, they have requisite talent to challenge or push Detroit. This matchup here is one of the swing battles that I think determines the outcome. If they can get the Colts off the field on 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6, because Amik Robertson is shutting down or taking away Josh Downs as a first option, then the Lions are going to possess the ball for longer periods of time. More often, they're going to get the offense on the field. This is a huge matchup. How efficient Downs is, I can't stress it enough. 50 catches on 71 targets. He leads the team in catching, by the way. Along with the efficiency that you saw in college at North Carolina, this is a unique talent. I don't think that the NFL world yet recognizes how good of a football player Josh Downs is. If he were on some other teams, some more high-profile teams, well, at this point, like the Lions, if you didn't have an Amon-Ra St. Brown and you had Josh Downs in his place, there are certain factors or elements you would lose, of course, but Downs is going to produce no matter where he goes. If he were not playing for the Colts, I think he would garner a little bit more attention across the league. He's a high-level football player that's very efficient, and he's going up against essentially a mirrored image guy in Amik Robertson. There's a lot of tenacity and a lot of an edge or nastiness that Robertson plays with. I think they need that. I'd like to see Josh Downs pushed here a little bit, challenged physically, and see how he responds. It's going to be a fun game to watch for me. Having no Ravens game to cover on Sunday, my focus will be on the Detroit Lions, of course. I appreciate you guys' time, man. Let me know what you think of the video in the comment section, what you think of the plays that I chose to illustrate, how well each of these guys is performing so far in 2024, and if you think other Lions fans would enjoy this film study look at the Amik Robertson-Josh Downs matchup, please consider grabbing a link to this video, sharing it out on social media to help this content get more reach.